The United States military cut battlefield bleeding deaths by 67%. They did it with a powder. The active ingredient costs pennies to produce. It comes from clay and crustacean shells. Every branch of the U.S. military carries it. Every NATO ally that reviewed the data adopted it. The Israeli Defense Forces tested it independently and confirmed hemorrhage control rates between 88 and 92%. That is not a supplement. That is not a home remedy. That is a field-validated medical intervention with 2 decades of combat theater proof. And you were never told it exists. The raw materials. Kaolin, a clay mineral used in paper production and ceramics. Chitosan, a polymer derived from shrimp and crab shells. Industrial waste, fractions of a cent per dose. By the time FDA regulatory compliance inflates the price, you pay $20 to $80 for a single packet. Meanwhile, uncontrolled hemorrhage kills more than 35% of all pre-hospital trauma victims. The wound care industry is projected to reach $32.75 billion by 2033. Nobody in that pipeline has an incentive to make this cheaper. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what these agents are. You will understand how they work at the biochemical level. You will know precisely why you have never heard of them. And you will have the exact step-by-step military protocol for using them to stop a fatal bleed when no hospital exists. And the reason you've never heard of it is a story about money, regulation, and a system that decided your life wasn't worth the paperwork. Welcome. If this is your first time here, what we do is simple. We find the knowledge that institutions gatekept, that regulators buried under cost barriers, that militaries solved for their own personnel and never passed down to you. We verify it, we source it, and we hand it to you in a format you can actually use. This is not entertainment. This is an intelligence network. If that sounds like something you need, the subscribe button means you never miss a drop. If you're already here, you already know. So let's start where this story starts, not in a pharmacy, in a combat zone. In the late 1990s, the United States military had a problem it could no longer ignore. Uncontrolled hemorrhage was the leading killer of survivable battlefield casualties. Read that again. Survivable. These were soldiers who did not have to die. Their wounds were not inherently fatal. They bled out because no field intervention existed that could stop severe hemorrhage fast enough in austere conditions without a surgeon present. The military medical research community began investigating hemostatic agents, substances that could be applied directly to a wound and accelerate coagulation beyond what the body could achieve on its own. The goal was specific. Stop compressible and junctional hemorrhage in the field. Junctional meaning groin, armpit, neck, the places a tourniquet cannot reach. By 2003, the first hemostatic agent entered the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Protocols, TCCC, the gold standard for battlefield trauma medicine. The product was QuickClot, manufactured by Z-Medica. The active agent was zeolite, later reformulated to kaolin. Its inclusion in TCCC was not ceremonial. It meant every combat medic in every branch was trained on its use. It meant the product was integrated into the individual first aid kit, the IFAK, standard issue. Between 2003 and 2008, adoption expanded. The Army carried it, the Marines carried it, the Navy Corpsmen carried it, Special Operations carried it. By 2008, hemostatic agents were standard issue across all branches of the United States military. This was not a pilot program. This was full institutional adoption based on measured outcomes. And it was not just the Americans. NATO, allied forces reviewed the same data and reached the same conclusion. They adopted hemostatic agents into their own combat casualty care protocols. Independently, the Israeli Defense Forces conducted their own field evaluations. The IDF results were staggering. Hemorrhage control success rates between 88 and 92% in active combat conditions, on real casualties, not in a lab. Between 2001 and 2011, the period spanning the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, battlefield bleeding deaths dropped by 67%. That number did not happen by accident. It corresponded directly with the phased adoption of hemostatic agents and updated TCCC protocols across the force. 2 decades, every branch. Every allied force that looked at the data reached the same conclusion. So the question becomes, why didn't you know? Before I answer that, I want to mention something. What you're hearing today is the surface layer of a much deeper research archive. We maintain what we call the vault, extended breakdowns on topics like this, grid down medical preparedness, water procurement and purification chemistry, food preservation methods that predate refrigeration by centuries, defensive infrastructure, communications when networks fail. Every piece is sourced the same way. No filler, no speculation dressed as fact. If you want the full depth on hemostatic wound care, including product comparison data, shelf life rotation protocols, and integration with a complete trauma kit, the Vault link is in the description. But stay right here, because right now, you need to understand how this actually works inside your body. Your blood clots through a process called the coagulation cascade. When a vessel is damaged, platelets arrive first. They form a temporary plug. Then clotting factors activate in a chain reaction. Each factor triggers the next. The endpoint is fibrin, a protein mesh that stabilizes the platelet plug into a solid clot. That is the seal. That is what stops you from bleeding out. In a healthy person with a minor wound, this happens on its own. In a severe hemorrhage, the system cannot keep up. Blood is leaving faster than your body can build the clot. The cascade is overwhelmed. You bleed out. Kaolin-based hemostatic agents work by supercharging one specific step in that cascade. Factor 12. When kaolin contacts blood, it activates factor 12 at a rate your body cannot achieve alone. Factor 12 activation accelerates the entire cascade downstream. More clotting factors activate faster. Fibrin production surges. The clot forms in a fraction of the normal time. The fastest acting products achieve hemostasis in approximately 90 seconds. That is the first mechanism. Here is the second. Chitosan-based agents, like Celox, manufactured by Medtrade Products, work through an entirely different pathway. Chitosan carries a positive electrical charge. Red blood cells carry a negative charge. When chitosan contacts blood, electrostatic attraction causes the red blood cells to bind directly to the chitosan matrix. This creates a mucoadhesive gel seal over and within the wound. The critical difference. Chitosan does not depend on the body's coagulation cascade at all. Think about what that means. There are millions of people on anticoagulant medications right now. Blood thinners, warfarin, heparin. The newer factor inhibitors, these drugs deliberately suppress the coagulation cascade. If one of those patients suffers a severe hemorrhage, their own clotting system is chemically hobbled. A kaolin agent still helps because it accelerates whatever cascade function remains. But a chitosan agent bypasses the cascade entirely. It works through physics, not biochemistry. Electrostatic charge attraction, independent of clotting factor availability. For the millions of civilians and their family members managing anticoagulant therapy, this is not academic. This is a survival variable. The IDF validated these results in the field. The United States military measured a 67% reduction in hemorrhage deaths across the full 2001 to 2011 combat period, corresponding directly to the phased rollout and universal adoption of hemostatic agents alongside updated trauma protocols. So the science is proven. The military proved it in the field. The Allies confirmed it independently. The products exist on shelves right now, so why does the average person have no idea? Follow the money. Kaolin is a clay mineral. It is one of the most abundant minerals on the planet. It is used in paper manufacturing, ceramics, paint, toothpaste. The raw material cost is fractions of a cent per gram. Chitosan is derived from chitin. Chitin is the primary structural compound in crustacean exoskeletons, shrimp shells, crab shells. It is literally seafood processing waste. The global seafood industry generates millions of tons of it annually. The raw material cost is negligible, so the active ingredients cost nearly nothing. The finished hemostatic product retails between $20 and $80 per package. Where does that gap come from? The FDA classifies hemostatic wound agents as Class 2 and, in some cases, Class 3 medical devices. That classification triggers a regulatory development pathway that includes pre-market notification or pre-market approval, clinical testing data, biocompatibility studies, sterility validation across the manufacturing chain, good manufacturing practice, compliance audits, ongoing post-market surveillance obligations. The estimated cost to bring a hemostatic product through this regulatory pathway exceeds $150 million. $150 million. For a product whose active ingredient is clay or seafood waste, that cost creates a wall. Only companies with massive capital reserves can afford to enter the market. The result is market concentration. A small number of manufacturers control the space. The global hemostatics market is valued at $2.8 billion, within a projected wound care market of $32.75 billion. With few competitors and high barriers to entry, there is no downward price pressure. The cycle sustains itself. High regulatory cost means fewer competitors. Fewer competitors means higher prices. Higher prices mean lower adoption. Lower adoption means lower public awareness. Lower public awareness means no political pressure to reclassify. And the cycle continues. Now, I want to be precise about something. I'm presenting documented structural facts. The FDA classification requirements are public record. The development costs are industry-reported figures. The market concentration is observable. Whether this system is maintained deliberately to protect incumbent manufacturers, or whether it is simply a bureaucratic structure that nobody has any incentive to reform, that is an interpretive question. I label it as such. The documented facts do not require speculation to be damning. 35% of pre-hospital trauma deaths are caused by hemorrhage. That is the leading preventable cause of trauma death. And the products that address it are priced behind a regulatory wall built on penny-cost raw materials. Whether it's deliberate or just a system that nobody has any incentive to fix, the result is the same. People die who didn't have to. And that's why what comes next matters more than anything else in this video. If you have watched this far, you are not a casual viewer. You are the kind of person who needs to know what the system will not teach you voluntarily. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider this. Every person who learns this protocol is one more person the system failed to keep in the dark. The subscribe button is right there. The notification bell means you hear about these drops first. And if you find value in this, share it, because the person you send this to might be the one who uses it. That is not dramatic. That is arithmetic applied to hemorrhage statistics. Before I give you the exact protocol, there is something I need to be honest about. The early generation of QuickClot used a zeolite mineral as its active agent. Zeolite hemostatic reactions are exothermic. They generate heat. First generation products caused thermal burns in some cases. This is documented. This is why the formulation was changed. Current generation kaolin-based products do not produce clinically significant exothermic reactions. The zeolite formulation has been discontinued. If you encounter old stock with zeolite-based labeling, do not use it. Current kaolin and chitosan products have established safety profiles validated by 2 decades of military deployment. Chitosan is derived from crustacean shells. If the patient has a confirmed severe shellfish allergy, there is a theoretical risk of allergic reaction. I say theoretical because documented anaphylaxis cases from chitosan hemostatic application are exceedingly rare. In a life-threatening hemorrhage scenario, the risk of exsanguination massively outweighs the theoretical allergy risk. But you should know the consideration exists. Hemostatic agents are a bridge, not a destination. They buy time. They control bleeding long enough to reach surgical care. In a grid-down scenario where surgical care is unavailable, they extend the survival window, but the wound still requires definitive treatment. Infection risk remains. Monitoring remains essential. These products have a shelf life of 3 to 5 years, depending on manufacturer and storage conditions. They require rotation. Date them when you buy them. Replace them before expiration. And the IDF success rates of 88 to 92% reflect trained personnel. Training matters. Understanding the protocol matters. Which brings us to exactly that. Now you know what it is, how it works, why you were never told, and what the real risks are. Here's how you use it. This is the application protocol derived from the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Guidelines, the same protocol used by every branch of the United States military. Step 1. Identify the source of life-threatening hemorrhage. This means bright red blood that is spurting, flowing freely, or soaking through clothing rapidly. Junctional locations are the primary indication. Groin, axilla, meaning armpit, neck. These are the areas where a tourniquet cannot be applied effectively. Step 2. Expose the wound. Remove or cut away clothing to visualize the injury site completely. You cannot pack what you cannot see. Do not attempt to apply hemostatic agents over clothing or through a visual estimate of wound location. Step 3. Pack the hemostatic agent directly into the wound cavity. This is critical, not on top. Into. If you are using hemostatic gauze, which is the more common modern format over loose granular powder, feed the gauze strip directly into the wound. Press it against the bleeding vessel. Fill the wound cavity. The agent must contact the source of bleeding to function. A hemostatic gauze draped over a wound surface will not achieve hemostasis on a deep bleed. Step 4. Apply firm, direct pressure for a minimum of 3 minutes. Some protocols specify 5 minutes. Do not release pressure to check whether bleeding has stopped. This is the most common error. Every time you release pressure, you disrupt the forming clot. The kaolin or chitosan needs sustained contact time under pressure to build a stable hemostatic seal. 3 to 5 minutes, continuous. No checking. Step 5. Apply a pressure dressing over the packed wound. Do not remove the hemostatic agent. The packing stays in place. The pressure dressing maintains compression. In a grid-down scenario with no access to surgical care, leave the packing in place. Monitor the site for signs of infection. Fever, increasing pain, swelling, discoloration, foul discharge. That is the protocol. The same protocol that cut battlefield bleeding deaths by 67%. The same protocol that the IDF validated at 88 to 92% effectiveness. And now you have it. Let me tell you where we have been. In the late 1990s, military researchers identified uncontrolled hemorrhage as the leading killer of survivable battlefield casualties. By 2003, the first hemostatic agent entered TCCC protocols. By 2008, it was standard issue across every branch of the United States military. Over 20 years, these products were validated in combat theaters across 2 wars. Allied militaries tested them independently and confirmed the results. The science operates through two distinct biochemical pathways: kaolin accelerating factor 12 in the coagulation cascade, and chitosan creating an electrostatic seal independent of clotting factors entirely. The products work. That has never been in question. What has been in question is why you never knew. And the answer is a regulatory cost structure that transforms penny-cost raw materials into $20 to $80 retail products, protected by a $150 million development wall that eliminates low-cost competition. No one profits from making this cheaper. No one profits from making it more widely known. The military solved its own hemorrhage problem and has no mandate for civilian advocacy. The FDA faces no political pressure to reclassify. And the $2.8 billion hemostatics market continues undisturbed. But here is what matters right now. These products are legal. They're available over the counter. No prescription is required. You can order them today. You can have them in your home, your vehicle, your workplace, your kit within days. The barrier was never legal. It was economic and informational. And that barrier just broke for every single person watching this. Every person you share this with is one more person who will not bleed out waiting for an ambulance that might never come. That is not a slogan. That is the math on pre-hospital hemorrhage mortality applied to a product with a 67% mortality reduction rate. Send this to one person who matters to you. That is all it takes. Next week, we are going deep on a topic that connects directly to what you learned today: a complete trauma response framework for scenarios where professional medical care does not exist. The protocol you just learned is one piece. The full picture is in the next drop. Make sure you are here for it. The link to the vault is in the description. The knowledge exists. It always did. Now it is yours.